for December 16th. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Pugh,
Here.
Little. Here. Cooper. Aline.
Here.
Newton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
I did hear from Ms. Barron. I did hear from Ms. Cooper. She's a little under the weather. I don't know if she's going to be joining us online or not, but if she does, we'll happily accept. Item number 2, approval of minutes from March the 25th, 2025. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. Madam Clerk, can you call for the vote, please?
Pugh,
Yes.
Little.
Yes.
Cooper. Aline.
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right, item number 3 on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Is there?
Mr. Chair, nothing from administration.
Case, I entertain a motion. All right.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Madam Clerk, can you call for the vote, please?
Pugh,
Yes.
Little.
Yes.
Aline.
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right, that takes us to item number 4 on the agenda items for discussion and action. Item 4A. ACA.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have Director Pamela Green with us today. If you would recognize her, please.
Director Green, you recognize.
Is the recording off? I guess since it was going to be executive
So
session.
is this an executive session item? Yes, okay then. Well, we need to entertain a motion for executive session.
Move to executive session.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded to enter into executive session. Madam Clerk, can you call for the vote, please?
Pugh,
Yes.
Little.
Yes.
Cooper. Aline.
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right, we're gonna have executive session here. Madam Clerk, can you call for the vote?
Pugh,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Lean,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right, thank you. And for the record, we went into executive session to receive some information. No votes were taken. Ms. Green, you recognize item 4B.
Okay. So this relates to an update as it relates to the revolving loan fund or proposal thereof. So if we will go to page 9 in your packet, we've had an opportunity to talk to several different counties, and then we were a part of a conference back in August, September, where we were able to meet with counties across the U.S. So it gave us an opportunity to talk about some of those that have a revolving loan fund, their programs, how they operate. When I initially talked to you all about the revolving loan fund, we were talking about kind of doing it in-house. Having a lender, making sure we have the compliance person and supportive staff in order to basically administer that through the OSBO office. After kind of looking at some of the other counties, how they're operating, I've put together kind of a proposed look at a revolving loan fund that would basically be administered through a third party. The purpose of that is probably threefold. Number one, it kind of reduces the fact that we would actually have a loan review committee, but it takes the workload off of that committee. It allows the loans to be made or the recommendations to be made by an expert in the area of lending, because who we would be looking to be the provider is a lending type institution. We'll be looking at a CDFI, which is a community development financial institution, which aligns with the goals of our office and making sure that we support local, rural, small businesses. So they have pretty much the same platform. So allowing them to do that, so we get an independent kind of validation of the loans, and therefore we're basically presenting to the committee the advice of the lender from our third party as to whether or not this loan should be approved. And what the committee is actually doing is making sure that the loan aligns with the plans and the policy of the revolving loan fund that we'll set up. So they're just making sure that there's compliance there. So that is why I just wanted to look at this route. So I've just outlined a few things if we look to go with a third-party servicer. And it's going to be very specific in the things that we're going to need from this servicer. We've worked with a number of different CDFIs, and so we've had an opportunity to talk about them because we need to make sure that the servicer has done these types of programs and understand how EDA works, the requirements and the compliance piece of this, so that we are always in adherence to it. So those have been the conversations, have been with those that have actually dealt with a lot of the federal guidelines. So before you is just an outline of kind of what the program would look like under a third party. We want to be able to provide a closed loop for any small business that will be coming into or getting a loan. So it's still a seamless process when this is actually done through the third party, because we're still providing assistance through our office, but we're also going to have additional support from the third party that's going to offer additional pre and post technical assistance or financial coaching that's ongoing for that particular borrower. So when we look through this, we would look at loans that are going to range from anywhere from $10,000 to $250,000. And so I want to give you a little bit of a perspective. If you take a look at Mecklenburg County, they have a program that they funded, but strictly through the county at like $2.75 million. However, their loan size only goes up to $75,000. So we look at Mecklenburg County, which is roughly, I think, 1.2 million in population versus about 400,000 here. We're proposing a grant of 2.5 to support our community, and I think that that is doable, and we'll be looking at this for a 5-year stint. It gives us an opportunity to be able to recapitalize the program every year at a very, very steady rate, that we don't feel as though we're using up all the money in one fell swoop, if that makes sense. The goal is, well, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let me just ask if there's any questions on that first page.
Charlene, you recognize.
Chairman Pugh, I do have a question about the loan amounts, particularly going up to $250,000. Assuming you had applicants that could qualify for $250,000, you're only helping about 12 businesses. How did we arrive at that number, particularly with you mentioning that Charlotte Mecklenburg only goes up to 75,000?
So Charlotte, the Mecklenburg County is totally a county-sponsored, whereas this has federal funding attached to it. So under EDA, the range is 10 to 250,000. If we wanted to write our revolving loan fund program specifically for us and we wanted to back that down to say maybe 150, we can do that, but we have to write it up and support why that we want that to be our cap. But that is doable, but that's the range that's allowed through EDA.
Mr. Chairman, I ask a follow-up question to what she just said. I
Hold
know
on
there are
one
other
second,
people
ma'am.
who had questions.
Hold on 1 second, ma'am. Ms. Newton, go ahead. You recognize.
What it sounded like you said in terms of the federal amount for the loan was that that's what's allowed. And so I just wanted to inquire, because there's a difference between allowed and required. So are you saying that without that supplemental justification, we are required to offer a grant up to $250,000, or just that we're allowed to?
We are allowed to offer up to 250,000.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell you, a lot of times whenever people are writing or counties are writing that, they don't want to completely box themselves in, because there may be an opportunity where there is something from a public-private type project that's going to involve small businesses, that there may need to be an actual increase. We can't say only 150, or we can go to 250, but we're still establishing the lending policy for anything that's at 250,000. We detail, and I'm going to say this, and this is not, my background is 30 years in banking. So when we take a look at how this needs to be written up, we're going to also look at what the criteria should look like. It's going to be well established as far as what would constitute someone being able to qualify for 250,000, and then the purpose of it. A lot of times the 250,000 is something that's dealing with real estate. So that would be why we may want to keep ourselves open and just leave it at what is an allowable range by way of EDA. Okay.
All right, Ms. Mackey, you recognize.
Oh, thank you. Can you speak a little bit about, I guess, the program in which we would use when you talk about EDA? And, you know, I've heard a little bit about CDFIs and what's happening right now from the federal level, that many of them may be, I guess, losing that funding or designate. So can you talk a little bit about, with what's going on at the federal level, how that may impact us? And then if we go this route, what happens when the funding is not there from the federal level? How does that impact our program compared to what you were saying with Mecklenburg County's model, that it seems, I guess you're saying, is not technically relied on? Did I hear that right? On
So Mecklenburg
EDA?
County is totally county-sponsored. So they pull the funds, whether it was out of general funds or economic development, that's where those funds came from.
Whereas in this situation, if we are going with the EDA route and we set it up right now, does federal funding exist right now? Or
Federal funding still exists for a revolving loan fund program. So I realize there's a lot going on with the federal piece. There were just some updates a couple of months ago, referenced this. This is still in place. This is still ongoing. It is still available. And even with the establishment of the program, after that, it is on us to make sure that we are definitely recapitalizing the program by way of loaning and deploying those monies continuously, so that at the end of, say, 5 years, we've added another $1 million by principal and interest alone. Okay, so, but that is still available. In working with CDFIs, so I'm being very specific about that in that we're looking at a provider that has a CDFI component, but is also self-sufficient in what they do, and they've been around for many years doing the exact same thing. Okay?
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that because I think the uncertainty, I don't want us to start something
Right.
and then off the gate, we can't even sustain it due to,
Yes,
yeah. Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
You recognize her.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a couple quick questions. So this Richland County revolving loan fund, has this been done in the county before, or is this our first time doing it?
This will be our first time.
First time, okay. And these other municipalities, or counties, I should say, that you talked to, did they have any kind of record of success? I mean, what's the default rate, do you know?
So, couple things on the default rate. One of the things that will be clearly outlined in our revolving loan will be a loan loss reserve. So we're going to have very specific language around that will support that. Unfortunately, in any revolving loan or any lending, there is default.
Oh, very familiar with that,
For
yes.
sure. So, for the most part, in talking with many of the other counties, they've been very successful in that they've been able to mitigate when they use a third party, because that third party is the one that's monitoring, that's collecting, that's handling all that. So they're also taking a look at ways to mitigate the loss. So there are things that could be done as far as a modification to the loan. There are things that could be done as far as maybe interest-only payments for a certain period of time. So there are a lot of collection efforts when we get there that helps us to kind of lessen that amount. Most of all that I've talked to, they've had pretty good success rate of being able to work out some type of mitigation that we're not having to take collateral, or if it isn't collateralized, that there is a way to modify the loan where it needs to be modified for a longer period of time to lessen the payment that helps that borrower to pay. So we keep that part in mind too, and that's another reason for a third-party servicer. That's what they do. So that'll help us in that case.
Okay, but like in Mecklenburg's case, I don't know how long they've been doing it, but do we know, is it a 5% default rate, 10%? Like, do we have a figure on that?
They didn't have a figure, well, they didn't
Okay.
give me a figure, let me put it that way.
Okay.
They've been doing the program since 2019.
Okay,
So with their initial investment of $2.75 million in 2019, their program is now revolving at a little over, I think, $4 million. And so they have continuous
okay,
loans, but I did not get their exact amount.
okay.
I will add that there have been some other counties where they've not had great success, but the program was not marketed was not marketed properly. And some of it was because there was an in-house lender. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, I have one additional question. At the bottom of page 9, it says RLF will serve businesses excluding areas within the city of Columbia's tract. Is that for any municipality or just city? Like, for instance, could somebody get a loan in the city of Forest Acres?
So this excludes the city of Columbia.
Just the city of Columbia?
The city of Columbia, because they have
Okay.
a revolving loan fund.
Okay,
And city sits in the county, but that will exclude any of them within their particular.
okay.
Okay.
great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, Ms. Newton, you recognize her.
Thank you. So looking at this scenario funded by the federal funding sources that you have listed here, I just want to understand if you're putting this here as, I don't want to say a hypothetical, as a recommended path, or if you're saying we actually already have this grant funding, because the way it's written here, I just wanted to be clear.
Okay, and the way I wrote it in a sense of what it would really look like if we tried to start putting these pieces together. This is gonna be a recommended path to use a third-party servicer. And so I wanted to put the components in that would kind of state why, and then when we flip over to page 3, I kind of talk about how do we capitalize the fund, what the numbers are gonna look like, what the potential numbers could look like when we're looking at having the third-party service, what kind of fees will we have to pay, for them. That is why this is kind of set up this way, and it also will make it easier when, if everything starts to go through, it makes it easier to kind of transfer all this into an actual, almost 100-page plan that we'll have to put together.
Okay, and I don't know that you can answer this question, but how would you rate our odds of receiving this level of funding from the grant? I don't know if it's highly competitive, if there's a certain amount that runs out. And so to the extent that you're able, how confident do you feel that this funding would be available to us at this amount?
I feel confident that we would be able to get the funding. There will be a number of, they look at, the county itself, the population, they look at the small business, they look at we'll have to really talk about the fact that this is going to help support, overall economic development by way of job creation and all that. And so we're going to detail some of that too, because that's part of the evaluation piece of that. But given a lot of the things that have been put in place with the county over the last couple of years is very supportive of the areas that they look to evaluate that we should be able to get the grant.
Thank you.
Talene?
Director Green, you mentioned coaching services. So will borrowers be required to go through some type of program in order to qualify?
It will be one of the things we don't want to set anybody up to fail. So the provider, the potential provider that we're looking at offers that to make sure that that particular borrower, when you look at the financials, that they understand their financials, they understand the impact of the loan whenever they get that, get the revolving loan. We can make it a requirement. Our goal is to make sure that they go through the provider's initial piece of understanding their financials and the impact, debt capacity, and all of this, and how this plays into it. That's a normal part of the provider that we're looking at. So they do that normally. It's not a requirement, but we're going to strongly encourage that. We can also actually make that a part of our policy if we want, to just make sure that we're really setting them up to understand the financial impact of the loan. And then there's post trainings and classes that will be offered by the provider also, as well as with us.
And the reason I ask is because if I understand this correctly, this is not just folks that might currently be in business, but this is also open to folks looking to open a business. Is that correct?
So there is a component where we could look at startups, but we will be limiting the amount that they could borrow.
Director Green, thank you for that information. I have a few questions. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me get Councilwoman Cooper. You're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you. I just wanted to go back to a couple of questions ago or statements ago about the funding source and noting how well, I just don't know that we want to depend solely on federal funding, and noting the state of the federal funding of this program. I would like for us to just consider maybe if this is indeed a priority for this council, that we would also look at some funds from either our general fund or elsewhere, economic development, somewhere else, that we could say that, even if these federal dollars go away, we're still vested in doing so, and promoting this program, because there's nothing worse than, getting people all excited about these great programs and these opportunities, and then when the funding goes away, so does the program go away. And as we state in our community impact grants committee, we want sustainability from our grantees, and I would encourage us to make sure that we are also looking at sustainable options for any of the programs that we would like to put forth. That's all I have. I just wanted to make that statement.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. As I was saying a few minutes ago, Director Green, thank you for that information. I just had a few questions as well. Well, not questions, probably most of statements. I know you made mention that y'all visited with quite a few counties around the country and talked about revolving loan funds. Were there any other options outside of the third-party option and the option that Mecklenburg County uses?
So with Mecklenburg County, they are using a third-party provider. If you take a look at Charlotte CBI, it's a much larger fund that's more public-private. They use a number of different, but they're still using third-party providers. You do have a few counties that actually do the in-house lender. That's what the city does. They have an in-house lender that reviews all the loans, makes the decisions, goes before the committee for approval. So it's kind of either it's an in-house program, or we look at doing it as, having a third-party provider.
So when you say it's an in-house program, you may mention that Mecklenburg County is an in-house program, but they use a third party. Are you saying they use a third party to access the funds and they manage it in-house, and the third party program that we're talking about would allow somebody else to manage the program outside of Richland County? Is that what?
So regardless, in our case, if we do the third party, we're still have fiduciary responsibility. We're still managing that. What happens is there is an RLF account for the provider, and they draw down that account. Everything is still kept by way of the finance for Richland County as far as our line items as it relates to a revolving loan. For Mecklenburg County, they use a third-party servicer to do their loans. That's still an outside thing. They just funded it all completely through the county. So all the funds came from Mecklenburg County. It didn't come federally, or it all came out of one of their pockets for the county, the 2.75.
Okay, all right. Yes, sir, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I operated an internal program at another jurisdiction larger than this of about $5 million revolving loan. And the limitations of when you operate an internal one are typically you have to collateralize the loans. Because when you don't have the expertise that we're talking about, the third-party expertise, and you're relying on just internal staff to review them, usually the capabilities are limited. And so you typically limit yourself to what you can lend against. You only against things that are very, very, very secure. Typically, we had 150%, collateral on our loans. And yes, we did loan over $1 million for some businesses that were very, very large, doing large projects. But again, we had in excess of 100% collateral, because when you're doing it in-house and it's somebody like me who understands it, but I'm very limited in what I can do and my research, you can only pick things that are very safe. So that's the advantage to having a third party. You have expertise. You have folks who all day long do this, who have connections, who can get information and can parse things that you can't do in-house. That's the advantage to a third party.
Gotcha. So the other question / statement that I have, while doing this research, there were no other options for a revolving loan fund that could have been brought to council, so we collectively could figure out what's best for Richland County.
So, the last time that I was before you all, we kind of talked about kind of 3 different buckets that we could look at. We could look at funds that could come by way of CDBG that could offer maybe some grants for a specified tract of Richland County. And you could also have strictly county-related funds that pretty much you can lend, I don't want to say however you want, there's still guidelines, but it allows more flexibility, wouldn't have the federal stipulations. So there's nothing that precludes us from kind of adding an additional arm to our revolving loan fund for maybe dollars that are going to be coming by way of maybe from the county. You all decide to do a certain amount that you want that has more flexibility to it without any of the federal guidelines, because it's not federal dollars. The other piece in this, when we kind of get to how do you capitalize this and the potential for assistance with the match and all that, when you talk to other organizations that may be willing to kind of match dollars to help capitalize this, can be done by way of some private sector connections that we have also. But For the most part, it is either funded by the county, private sector folks, which is what Charlotte has. It's a very large $40 million project, but they funded it by way of some of their city dollars, some of their corporate dollars, and some other private sector organizations to kind of fund those dollars. So that is a possibility to do that also. The reason I say this is because it allows us to take a look at, number one, it kind of gives us I don't want to say, maybe more like a training ground and a pilot for those first 3 to 5 years of like the best lending strategy that works by way of what we're seeing, who we're seeing that's coming in and asking for loans, kind of what the average size is. It also gives an idea of what the potential default rate could be. And then we can always tweak things. I know that Councilwoman Cooper just mentioned, you know, kind of starting something and not being able to finish it. And I just want to address this. If we receive the grant funding, we're getting the $2.5 million and it's going into an account, okay? If the program goes away, that means we're not going to be able to recapitalize the program. However, what we're doing is we're relying on the interest and then we're redeploying the principal, which causes this to revolve, which causes this to grow. So our $2.5 million revolving loan program at the end of 5 years could be a $6 million program. You get what I'm saying? So that's the piece we have to keep in mind. And I realize that there's a lot of concern about what is going on currently right now. We're looking at all that, we're reading everything, we're asking the questions. But if we're approved for the $2.5 million grant, we're getting that money. That is money that comes to us and it is in the account. So even if that goes away, we will still be accountable to still probably do reporting. It just means that we're not able to go back and ask for more money. The goal, even in starting this program, is not to go back and ask for more money. It is to be able to just capitalize the program and keep it revolving so that it is sustainable.
So, outside of what Mecklenburg County does and what we're proposing Richland County should do, is there any other revolving loan funds that exist across the country that is applicable to Richland County that you guys know about? Because let me say this. I understand the fact that we talked about the different buckets at this last time we met. This presentation right here about the third party it gives us more details and it gives us more insight on what that third party looks like. And so what I'm saying is there any other revolving loan funds that we can get a detailed report from, such as this, so collectively as a body in this ad hoc committee meeting, we can make a decision on what's best for Richland County? If you could answer that, and then I got one more question.
Okay. So if we want to look at something outside of a third party, well, we want to be looking at something outside of EDA funds. If we do that, then we're looking at kind of a combination or one or two of things. It would either be that the county is going to basically self-fund a revolving loan fund, or we're going to engage the private sector in helping to fund. So whether that's looking at, I don't want to throw names of, organizations out there, but if we looked at, let's just say, another bank and said, hey, would you be willing to contribute to a Richland County revolving loan fund in the amount of $200,000 to help fund, a revolving loan fund? We can look at those types of things, but all that's going to be hypothetical until we can actually solidify that we're going to actually be able to get those funds. But that's outside of that, and what I've talked to is either it has been in-house funded, or they've looked at federal dollars, CBDG funds, or done things by way of the economic development departments that are in there that have also helped to fund as well.
Okay, and so I guess my question is, because this is what was presented to us and it was the only one that was presented to us, why is this good for Richland County?
It's good for us because, number one, this is the first time we've ever done a revolving loan fund. We're also taking a provider that this is what they do. We're also taking a provider that kind of understands what the mission of how we want to be able to work with small local businesses within our county and how we're able to kind of fund to help build capacity. It's a shared vision in being able to do that. The other piece is when we look at, let's just say if we wanted to bring it in-house, have our own lender, we're looking at salaries and all of that. Whereas when we do a third party, the way that I've presented it in this, it allows for, and I think there's an example in here. Let's just say we're gonna pay them to administer the program, 2% of the outstanding balances that are there, which is pretty reasonable, and there's some numbers that are there also. But to offset having to pay, because there are other providers that may charge someone 10, 15, 20% to do the program. But when we take a look at all that the provider would be doing, they're able to collect origination fees from the borrower, which is typically normal in any commercial loan. That is another source for that provider, which allows us to not have to pay a whole lot for them to administer the program, but still have a robust program that allows them to do all the collections, all the monitoring, receives all the payments. Otherwise, if we have the internal with the staff, there's a whole system that needs to be completed, take the payments, do all this. This way, the provider is already familiar with, if we do EDA, all the guidelines, what the reporting needs to look like. We would just need to have a compliance specialist in the office that makes sure the reporting is correct, make sure everything travels to the finance side the way that it's supposed to, make sure they're drawing down by way of their reporting. All that is done on a compliance side. We would just need that person. It is a cost savings to do it third party. And then we also get the additional business coaching, financial coaching, additional classes, and that is like added value that's coming out of Richland County, because that's also a part of the lending program.
Got it. Thank you. I'm grateful for the information that we received today, and I'm asking the questions because I feel like this is like one of the brainchilds that I brought to the table.
It is one of your brain.
And so by it being the first time that this ever happened in Richland County, I want to make sure that we do our due diligence and make sure that it is a great program that can stand the test of time for years. And so that's why I'm asking the questions. Some of the things that I would like to see brought back to the committee in the future is I would like to see multiple options, just not an option to say, hey, this is what we need to do here at Richland County. I think we all need to talk through it to see what best fits the DNA of Richland County. We have a lot going on. There were a few questions here asked today, such as, will this help with startup businesses, or is this for existing businesses? And so I just want to make sure that we go through it with a fine-tooth comb before we throw something on the wall and see if it sticks, because this could be great, and then it can backfire in our face too. So I just wanted to make sure that we do everything that we need to do to make sure we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's. That's all.
So can I ask a question? So when you look at multiple options, the other option would be to involve more corporate private sector funding. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Councilman Brennan?
Thank you,
Yes, sir.
Director Green, here
Sure.
for all the information.
Thank you.
How would this maybe differ from loans through Small Business Administration?
With the Small Business Administration, there are a lot of guidelines. The difference is that our parameters for this will be things like businesses with less than, say, 50 employees, with certain thresholds as far as like revenue. That would be specific to the county. When we take a look at the program that runs out of OSBO, when we're looking at construction guys, and we just approved to increase their revenue threshold to about 10 million on average, over average 3 years, that may be part of our cap, whereas SBA can do loans up to, $1 million. I mean, they can. They also do a lot of SBA Express loans where they work with other lending institutions, and they're kind of expedited types of lending. But it's still SBA, it's still like any other loans, and sometimes the rates are higher.
What is the potential benefit of a program like this versus what the SBA is offering? It sounds like maybe lower interest rates if we offer
So
it.
a couple things, it's lower interest rate, and then also a lot of times with the revolving loan funds, they're serving as gap funding. When we take a look at a lot of the small local businesses, the biggest issue is access to capital. And a lot of times, the people that are taking advantage of these types of revolving loan funds, and this, whether it's with Mecklenburg County or Charlotte or whomever, it's because there have been barriers to getting the funding in order to basically continue to build capacity for their businesses. So that's one of the differences, because this serves as a gap funder for some folks that would never, ever receive traditional funding. And SBA still has a component that's still traditional funding. The rates for this particular program are also much less. So I think currently right now, and I just know this from the city, like there's a 4% rate right now, which is in this climate right now is unheard of on a commercial side. So that's the other piece. So this is also helping those businesses that are not able to get capital. Access to capital is an issue for small, local, rural businesses. And we've got to be able to help them to be able to build their capacity, and they need the funding to kind of help with that.
I think one more thing there. I'm just kind of trying to look at like what's the potential outlay from the county itself for participation. So you got the $625,000 required local match, and then potentially just under this fee agreement with a third-party servicer. It's a hypothetical, I guess, but like technical assistance fee, $1,500 a month, optional flat fee there. Is that one potential
So
one
with
as
the
well?
technical assistance fee, that I needed to strike that. That would not be a requirement because we would be working with a lender where that is actually a part of what they do.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and then it's just the new employee, 60,000 salary plus
fringes, yeah.
other costs of
And the cost
employment.
of that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That's all. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Aline?
Just one last question. Did you say that you would be providing us with economic impact information for this program?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
All right, ACA Jensen.
Mr. Branham, just to add to the response of your question, there is a lot of overlap between SBA program and a typical program such as we're proposing. The difference is flexibility, the ability to focus on certain projects. Like if the council had a priority area, let's just say a section of the county where they wanted to focus on activities, you can do things that with a program that you run yourself that the SBA may not allow you to do. So it's very useful for redevelopment, revitalization, where you want to focus on a particular area.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Anybody else? Director Green, thank you very much, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. Takes us to item number 5.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Madam Clerk, can you call for the vote, please?
Pugh,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Aline,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes?
Motion approved.
Adjourn.